Welcome back to my channel, guys, and if you're new here, I'm Tom Foolery, and I make 3D printed props and cosplay, and I show you guys how you can do it too. So, in today's video, we're going to be looking at how we make one of the most iconic characters and species from the Star Wars universe, and that is a Tusken Raider. We're going to be building the helmet today, but I will come back and show you the entire cosplay at another time. So what we're starting with today is a 3D printed base. We are actually 3D printing the shape that you can just get on MakerWorld or Thingiverse. You can pre-slice it. It is pre-sliced if you grab it off Thingiverse, and you can just throw it on your printer and away you go. Doesn't really matter what color you're going to print this in, guys. You can print it in a whole mess of colors because you are going to cover it in material at a later time. So if you've got a few spools with just a little bit left on them, go ahead and throw them at this project because it's going to be perfect. Now, I've made some very personal choices, and I do go through that later on as to which parts I do actually leave out of this print and leave out of this project. I will go into that in a little bit later, but I do that for myself. You can then choose whether you want to follow that, or you can just print the extra bits and add them on. I will show you how to do both, and I will talk you through that. Now, all the materials that I'm going to be using for this project, besides the 3D printed parts, you can just pick up at Spotlight. I am just using things like calico, some faux leather, and some basic materials you can get by half the meter from Spotlight. But if you want to go with something a little more creative, guys, I have done this project before, and I have used some old Kohl's reusable bags, those canvas brown bags, cut them up into ribbons, and you can use those as part of the stripping. You can find anything you like. You don't have to follow exactly what I do, guys. You don't have to buy the exact materials I do. You may not like the color that I use. That is fine. As with every project I do here, pick and choose what you want to follow. But if you are going to follow along, we're going to jump into the garage now and start working on this Tusken Raider. Before we do though, guys, I just want to talk through this one little bit quickly. I will be going over in this video some things about the 501st. Now, if you're not familiar with the 501st, they are the world's largest Star Wars cosplaying group. They cosplay the bad guys. A lot of the time they do a lot of volunteer work and supporting people and things like that. They are all around the world. Feel free to go check them out. They're a really cool organization. But they also have the best library for referencing if you're going to be making something from Star Wars. Now, a lot of the time to get approved for that, you have to be specific and you have to fit their categories. I'm not saying that that's what you have to do, guys. I'm not saying that you have to follow their guidelines step by step by step and be exactly perfect. Hell, this is an art form. You can take any creative license that you feel you want to. This is your suit, guys. It's not for anyone else. In the end, focus on that. But I will be showing you where to get those guidelines from. I will be showing you where they keep them on their website that anyone can access, and how to sort of read and go through them, just because they are a really good reference point if you're going to be making something that is Star Wars related. You can go in and find a number of these. You can go in and find, there's a couple of different websites and a few things that have the good guys and the bad guys. These are specifically the bad guys. But you will be able to find those reference libraries for any cosplay that you want to do from Star Wars, pretty much. And if you can't, Google it, YouTube and TikTok are your best friends, guys. Because I'm sure if you want to do something from Star Wars, someone else has had the idea before. And if you haven't both completed it yet, reach out, make friends, find a way to complete it together. Anyway, guys, that's my little bit of a rant over. Let's go jump into the garage and start on this helmet. Alright guys, welcome back. I am out in the garage today, and we're going to be doing a bit of a build here as just one. Hopefully get it done today. There's a few parts to this, so bear with me. I'm going to speed through it. We might jump back and forth a bit, but I will take you through every single step of this build, just like I do all the other times. I've had some people reach out on here saying they want to see a few more build videos, a few more details, going through a bit more. I love that you guys absolutely love when I talk about 3D printers and all the printers I use and different techniques, different styles, different printers, what I'm doing with them, the resin versus FDM, things like that. And if you want to see more of that, let me know. I'll come back to it. But today we're doing a build video. So if you can't tell already, we're doing a Tusken Raider today. So what we're going to do is I printed this up in green. I have made some very specific decisions on the files on which bits I chose not to actually print. I will get into that later, but I printed all the parts out here. As you can see, I went with green. I'm not going to have to paint this, guys. I'm not going to have to sand it down. It can be rough. You know, there are bits of this print that are rough, but in the end, all of it's getting covered in wrappings and fake leather. And let's hope it looks good. The only thing I am going to paint, guys, is all the metal details. So all of these I will sand down. I probably won't prime them too much. I'm going to go over and do a nice rough coat. I'm going to clean up all these little bits in here, as you can see. And then we're going to go over it with the chrome. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's just start putting this together. Alright, I'm really frustrated here. My camera for some reason didn't record me putting the mask piece together, but really it was just the two pieces, the top and the bottom. The top didn't quite print out perfectly flat to the bottom, so I tack welded one side and then squashed it a little bit and tack welded the other side before reinforcing the whole thing. This I do with just a soldering iron, going over and just melting the plastic together of the two parts. Leaves the outside nice and clean, but as I said, it's going to be covered in material anyway. Alright guys, so I've come inside because it's a bit cold in the garage now, but we've got our helmet all welded together and all the silver parts are all painted up and looking schmick, so we're going to start going through the material. Now for the wraps, I've got this calico-like material that I've kind of weathered up. I got this from Spotlight. I've just gone and tatted up the edges a little bit, which you can see there. It's a thin material. I'm going to layer it over itself a few times. That's for the bandages, guys. For the wraps around the nose, I have this faux leather, which is what I'll also use when I do the pouches on his belt. But this is for the wraps around the top of the nose, up under the eyes. And for the wraps around the mouthpiece, I've got this. It's a darker, almost black scale-like faux leather that I'm going to cut one big circle and then cut a smaller circle out of the middle and fold it in on itself and glue it around the mouthpiece. So let's give that a go and see how it turns out. Okay guys, so you may not necessarily want to make this 501st approved, and you may not worry about that with your suits, but if you would like to, I'm actually going to show it today. This is where you get your information from. So you go to the 501st Legion databank and you can actually select from a number of costumes. Every costume that they have as an approvable suit for the 501st, you will find on here with instructions. Now the way that that works is there are a number of different colors. So everything in black for each piece has to be there for the base rate. Now there are different levels of certification, so if it's in blue or red, it is an optional extra to get a level 2 or level 3 certification. But let's just have a look at this. So we're going to be looking at that mouthpiece we were just talking about. Here we are, so it's the snout. So leather or simulated leather is used for the snout wrapping. Snout wrapping must be accurate to the references. There's a number of different reference images you can get, but each one has ones like this. Now the tucked mouth area, which is what we're talking about, is not uniformly pleated. So as it's folded over, it can't be exact. You don't want to measure it. It needs to look a little bit messy, like so. So let's go have a look at it. Okay guys, so this is how it's looking at the minute. As you can see, I just folded it as I went around. So I folded it over each piece and glued it down as I went around. I'm going to go back on the inside. I didn't make the circle quite big enough. So I'm going to go back on the inside and just thread some pieces through and strap it all down to make sure I get all the inside of that mouth bit covered. And I'll be back. Alright, so now that that's all done, it's time to take strips of this and start layering it over around the nose. So let's do that. Alright, so I've just measured up the first bit and I've cut it. This material is stretchy though, guys, so I am pulling it nice and tight because I do want it to fit snugly. And I even want to press it in with my thumb to get this detail to stick through. But that's how she's looking so far. Pretty happy. All right guys, so before I finish up these layers of wrapping, I'm gonna add the nose piece on. Now this does like angle so that it should sit back and attach directly there, but it sits too far back. In all the original reference images, the nose sits out past the mouth, so I'm going to do that and I'll fill that in with probably just some rolled up of this fake leather and stuff and just pack it in. All right, now that that's done, this is how we're looking, guys. Pretty happy with that. The last few steps now are to start adding in the strips of calico. But before we do that, let's put these on. So I'm going to put all the other metal parts on, guys. The eyes, cheek pieces, and then we're going to start wrapping it in strips of calico. So let's get to it. Okay, so what I did was I went through it all. I cut up my muslin wrap, my canvas sort of material, calico that I got from Spotlight, into nice long strips, longer than that. These are all the offcuts. I went and used some of it and a nice lining that I got from Spotlight as well, and I made a cloak, like a hood, and I've sewn that into the, or I've glued that into the inside to go over the back. Now, that's a personal choice, guys. This file that I have used does come with a back piece like a full helmet. I have had surgery on my head in the past, and so I can get some fluid buildup and different things, and I won't go into that. But for that reason, I don't like something that's going to hold tight there. Helmets and things are different. I can modify the inside to sit nicely for me. So for this choice, I actually decided to create that hood. So it sits over the back, and I'll put a piece of elastic on the inside so that it will then hold onto my head without being uncomfortable. I can then add this to the rest of the suit and add the scarf and everything to go around the neck. But this is what it's turned out like so far, guys. I think I'll keep going over some bits. I'm going to go over some of those metal pieces with more silver. I've wiped some of it off with my fingers. But let me know what you think. But that's that done, and this took me a day. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this build. I'll say again. And join me in the next one.